In this video, I'm going to talk a lot about the ups and downs of my career and all the times that I've been laid off and how I recouped from those layoffs. And I'll talk about some of the things that maybe I would have done differently, and also talk about how I bounced back from each one of these so-called setbacks and how it brought me to where I am today in life, in my career. Before the crash of the dot-com era, I was working in creative operations as a supervisor and also as a project manager for a video gaming company. Those were the two primary roles I had working in Silicon Valley. This was just prior to the crash of the dot-com era. So it was back in what, 1999, 2000, 2001, 2002. And after the crash of the dot-com era, I struggled to find work. I struggled, like everyone else, to find work in my field. There were a lot of us at that time. I recall a lot of friends, a lot of family members who were looking for work, and we just weren't able to find anything in our same fields at the same pay rate that we were making prior to the crash of the dot-com era. I remember being offered a role at about 50% what I had been making before, and I just couldn't see myself going back to a salary I basically had fresh out of college. I would have had to go back about $30,000, $40,000 to a salary that I made in my first professional role after graduating from college and work my way back up again. And I thought that's just a little too far back. Maybe I could take a pay cut of about, ten or $15,000 per year, but I certainly can't go back by 50%. I didn't have a lot of expenses at the time either. I was just getting started out. I had only been working for a few years and I had a small apartment in Silicon Valley. Fortunately for me, it was not outrageously priced like a lot of other properties in San Jose. I happened to know someone who lived in the building, and he said, "Hey, there's an apartment across the way from me that's available, and I thought you might be interested in looking at it." And so I did. I called up the property owners. They were a couple who had bought the property just because they thought it would might make a nice investment, not because they were trying to make a lot of money. So at that time in 99 or 2000, my rent was only $800, 800, maybe 850. It was pretty nice. And the apartment was pretty big. It was a really good size apartment. I loved it. I absolutely loved that I was walking distance to a lot of the shops and restaurants in downtown San Jose. I could go to the movies, relatively easily by walking over just a few blocks to the cinema, and I could ride the light rail. And a lot of my friends from college lived in the area, so it was very convenient. It was a really nice time after graduating from college, and I really enjoyed living in that area. But when I was laid off from my second corporate job, I had to give up my apartment, and that hurt a lot. It was really hard. The apartment was cute, it was affordable, and I knew I wasn't going to find anything like it again in that price range. I had a car payment that I was struggling to make after the layoff, and that made things even more challenging. Now, my car payment, if I recall, was only a few $100s, but still, um, not making, what I was making at that time, and then unemployment being what it was at that time, I wasn't able to make ends meet. So I was pretty discouraged and didn't know what to do initially, but I did find comfort in knowing that I wasn't the only one. Like I said, there were a lot of us friends and family members who had all lost our jobs around the same time. And I could probably name about 20 people in my immediate circle who struggled to find work after the crash of the dot-com era. And only one of us had a significant amount of savings to tide us over until the next job came along, right? So since I wasn't willing to take the job at 50% of what I had been making before, um, I moved home. I moved back home into my mom's house, and Wasn't sure what I was going to do initially, but after a little while, some friends said they were going to be moving to Southern California and they asked if I wanted to follow them. And initially, I didn't because I had never lived anywhere else besides Silicon Valley. I grew up there, I was born there in San Jose, and all my friends and family were there. I couldn't imagine living in Southern California. I had no interest, no desire to move to Los Angeles. But after some lengthy consideration, I decided, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it now. I'm not committed to anyone or anything right here in San Jose. So the best time for me to move, to make a move like this, is before I get in a long-term relationship and have children that I have to take in to consideration, right? So I decided to eventually move to Southern California. And it was actually, very interestingly, it was shortly after 9/11 that I moved to Los Angeles. And that may not be significant to anyone else, but it was significant to me. I moved to Los Angeles, and when I got here, I decided that I was going to give myself 2 years to figure out what I was going to do. And if I couldn't figure it out in 2 years, then I would move back home to San Jose. So, as it turns out, my struggle continued in Southern California. And I couldn't find a job when I first moved here to Southern California. I couldn't find a job that I could keep because there were some layoffs happening in LA as well. I couldn't find work in my field. So a friend of mine helped me get a job at her company in a temporary role as a HR assistant. And I did that for a little while. And I thought, I kind of like this HR thing. Maybe I should try my hand in a new field. Maybe I should leave project management and operations, supervisory type roles with direct marketing and video gaming. And I should stop pursuing these creative roles and try to develop a new career in human resources. But I thought with human resources, I do enjoy helping people. I did enjoy the work that I was doing in the contract role, the temporary role with my friend. And I could see myself helping people find jobs, develop their careers, and just all the stuff that comes with human resources and recruiting. And so after that contract role ended, I I applied to a lot of different human resource roles, but I wasn't getting called for interviews. And at first I couldn't figure out why, because I had a bachelor's degree. I thought that was enough to qualify me for any role, actually. And I had experience working in supervisory roles and management roles. I thought that it would be a natural transition for me to make into human resources, but I was wrong. So I had to get some help to make this transition from direct marketing to human resources. So I went to a temporary agency and I said, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. Can you help me get my foot in the door of human resources some way, somehow with some company? And I explained my story. I shared my story with the recruiter, and she completely understood and could relate to everything that I said. And because of that, she was able to help me get my foot in the door of a recruiting role. And so she said, I've got this recruiting role. It's with Trident Dental. I want you to go in there and I want you to just sell yourself, and boom, I'll do my part, you do your part, and we'll get you your first HR role. And so that's how I did it. I got into human resources via recruiting through a contract role with a company that was none the wiser, so to speak. And so I recruited for that company for about 3 or 4 months. And that role, I learned a lot in that role. I learned a lot about recruiting in that role, and that was the role that enabled me to land my second human resources role and then move on to my third human resources role. Now, my third human resources role, I experienced a layoff. I was there for about a year, and because I had already been through a layoff in Silicon Valley, I saw the writing on the wall. And so I started to get my ducks in a row and I started looking at opportunities elsewhere. And I mentioned to one of my coworkers that I thought, you know, layoffs are pending. And she said, "Oh, no, 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 Neil. I think we're fine." I said, "No, no. I was the only person in human resources technically." I said, "I think layoffs are coming. I'm not sure when. I'm not sure who, but the writing's on the wall, so we should get ready." So she did nothing. I was preparing, and I remember having a conversation with her later, saying, "I will either be the first person to go, or I will be the last person to go." Because typically that's what happens when a company is having layoffs. HR is either first or last. And when you're first, it just means that they don't need you. Um, it was a small company, around 50 employees, actually, I think 75 at the time they started laying off. So they really didn't need HR there to handle the layoffs. They could handle it themselves. The CEO, the accounting manager, and all of the directors and managers could handle these layoffs themselves. It was such a small amount of employees. If it was a larger company, they would probably keep HR on board just long enough to get rid of the bulk of the employees before they let HR go as well. So I I was called into the accounting manager's office. I was asked not to come in until lunchtime. And that's how I knew. I knew that I was going to be let go at lunchtime. So I told my coworker, "I just got an email. I have to go into the accounting manager's office during lunch. I won't be here when you get back, and I just want to let you know." She said, "Oh, no, 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 no. You'll be here when I get back." And I said, "No." I said, "I will not be here when you get back, but I will call you," because she happened to be a friend of mine. She turned out to be a friend of mine. We became friends while working together. So sure enough, I walk into the accounting manager's office. I have my pen in my hand because I'm ready to sign whatever it is they want me to sign just so I can get out of there. The company was very toxic, so I was more than happy to leave. And so I walked in, and the accounting manager was there, and she had backup. She had she had protection, I think is what he was there for. I'm not certain. Not that I ever exhibited any violent tendencies, but he was probably there to be a witness. But to me, it felt like he was there to protect her. He was standing behind her, and I just thought the whole thing was just kind of crazy. So, anyways, long story short, she says, "I'm really sorry. The CEO can't be here to," because I report it directly to the CEO. The CEO couldn't be here to, let you know this himself personally, but he sends his, apologies and yada, yada, yada. And I just stood there looking at her like, okay, where's the document to sign? I mean, I don't need to hear all this. I don't need to I don't need all this, I already know what's happening. And she actually, I didn't say those words, but I felt those words. And I think those words were written all over my face like, okay, can we just hurry up and move this along? And she stops her little spiel and she says, "You already know, don't you?" And I was like, "Yes, I already know." And she said, "How do you know?" I refused to sit down for one. She asked me to take a seat. I said, "No, I'm fine standing. Let's just do this." And I shared with her and the gentleman standing behind her that how I knew was that everyone's behaviors had changed. Everyone on the management team, their behaviors had changed. They had always been jerks. They had always been unprofessional and unkind and just very rude. Just rude, generally speaking, not just to me, but just generally speaking. This is how they operated this business. And I absolutely did not fit in there. And I remember saying to the CEO one day, "I won't tolerate you talking to me that way. I'm just letting you know. I won't tolerate it." And so I was treated with a different respect by him. But in the presence of everyone else, it was just the same old, right? It was drama, it was nonsense, it was profanity, it was rudeness, it was just really toxic, bad behavior for a company. So When I told her that I knew because everyone's behavior had changed, she asked me how so. And I said, well, everyone suddenly, all of a sudden, is saying please and thank you and I appreciate you and blah, 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 blah. So, how could I not know that something was going on? So, she said to me, okay, well, this is your last day. And I was like, that's fine. Where do I sign? And so she handed me the paper. I signed it. And the gentleman who was standing behind her had to escort me out of the building, which I thought was interesting. I had never been escorted out of a building before that, and I've never been escorted out of a building since then. It's the only company that ever treated me that way. So he walks me over to my desk. I clean my desk, which was a very quick process because we weren't allowed to have anything on our desk anyways. No personal items, no personal photos. You couldn't hang anything up on the cubicle walls, or it was a very easy pack. And I had already started taking stuff home a few days before because I knew it was happening. So he says to me, so what are you going to do now? Go back home, to your mom, to, San Jose. And I said, no, I'm going to find another job. And he was like, oh, it's a really bad market out there right now. I haven't been able to find a job. Da, 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 da. And I said, well, I'm not you. I am just going to go home and I'm going to start looking for another job. And that's what I did. And within a few weeks, I had another job. I started working for a nonprofit and I ended up working with them as a training and recruiting officer and then became a generalist, a human resource generalist. Worked for that company 6.5 years. Now, I didn't like working for that company initially. I wanted to leave almost immediately, but I talked to a friend of mine before walking out on that company, and she said, just stick it out for a few months and see how it goes. So I did. Ended up working there for 6.5 years. Not because I loved it, but I think because I just got in the habit of going. And there were a lot of changes that happened with that company. My director walked out when someone was appointed to be her new supervisor. She was not happy about that. She left. And I was left to hold down the fort. And that happens to me a lot where I'm the last man standing and I'll hold down the fort in the meantime of someone else coming on board. Didn't receive anything for all of those, all the times that I held down the fort, but that's okay. After that, I worked for two colleges as career advisors and experienced two more layoffs or downsizings. The first one was a small vocational school. I was given 30-day notice, and it was at a time when still, the job market was not so great. It was better, but not so great. The second college I worked for, I actually asked the human resources director if the company anticipated having layoffs in the near future because I didn't want to go through another layoff. Now, the nonprofit organization that I worked for 6.5 years, I resigned from that company. The two career advisor positions at the two colleges experienced downsizing and layoffs there. And I ended up going from there. Where did I go? Oh, I had a short stint as a sales rep for a um, food and beverage company. I had met someone, actually the director of my director at the second to last college that I worked for. Her and her partner were starting a beverage company, and she asked me to edit some documents for them. This was after we found out that we were being let go. She asked me to edit some documents for them, and I said, sure. I took a look at them, I edited them, and of course, to edit, you have to read, right? So I asked her about this venture that her and her partner were starting. And I was really fired up about it. So fired up about it that I couldn't sleep that night. So the next day I went back and I said, I want to be a part of this. I want to be a part of this company that you and your partner are building. I'll continue to edit documents for you. I'll, do whatever to be a part of this budding business that you and your partner are putting together. I even want to invest in it. But at the time, I didn't have any money to invest. So when I took my bonus money and I invested it in this beverage company. And after we were all let go, I ended up working as a sales associate for them for a hot minute before actually contracting with them as a freelance editor, or an editor, if you will, of their documents, and also helped with create human resource job descriptions and things of that nature. As well as I attended some events, to promote the company. Well, they built another company, which was a women's sports league. And so I ended up doing a little bit of work for the women's sports league and a little bit of work for the beverage company. In 2019, I launched my own training company, Careerspresso, and that was the same year that I was approved to become a foster mom. I was really fired up about being a foster mom, and I was really excited about the launching of my business. I legitimized my business, I trademarked the name, and everything was just going great. I was also working for a company on site contracted to prep their files for an upcoming audit. And I was starting to feel hopeful again. And then in 2020, the pandemic hit, and what was supposed to be a 2-week lockdown turned into almost 2 years of us not being able to work essentially in a lot of different arenas. The contract role that I had immediately ended the contract because they didn't know what was going on and how this was going to affect them. The food and beverage company got shut down by the government, of course, if you recall. All food and beverage companies and restaurants were ordered to cease business, cease operations. And then the sports industry was pretty much the same. So I had three primary sources of income wiped out all within a matter of weeks. But I was still hopeful because I thought, well, this is temporary, right? But it turned out that it wasn't temporary, or not as temporary as I thought it was going to be. And so after about 4 months, I started to worry. After about 6 months, I had pretty much run out of money, most of my money. And at the end of that year, first year, 2020, we thought the food and beverage company was going to get up and running again, as well as the women's sports league. But that didn't happen. So I went into the next year feeling pretty discouraged, pretty defeated, because I was banking on that. I was banking on the women's sports league and the food and beverage company getting things going again. And I think they were banking on it too, but it just didn't happen. So in 21, I really didn't do that much. I did a little bit of side hustle or gig work here and there. And then in 22, my hope was restored temporarily when I reached out to a recruiter online, on LinkedIn to be exact, about a role that he had posted. He didn't say what company it was with, but he had a description on the post and it pretty much described me to a T. So I thought, I need to get that job, right? I've run out of money and I need to get that job. So it turned out to be a role with Amazon. And it was a contract recruiting role for their games division. And I prepared for the role. I had recruited before, but I hadn't recruited specifically for tech. Now, I'd worked in tech, but I hadn't recruited for tech, not the kind of tech that they were looking for. So I had to educate myself on a lot of the terminology. So yes, I did my homework. I learned tech terminology. I learned games publishing a little bit. And I brushed up on my recruiting skills because I had been in career advising and human resources for probably 8 years. I hadn't recruited full time in quite some time. But I was able to secure that role with Amazon and went through 3 months of training, independent training with them, and was on the floor for maybe 6 weeks when Amazon started laying off. Amazon started laying off recruiters, starting with their contract recruiters. And so, fortunately for me, and I'm very grateful for this, most recruiters were given 1 day notice, 2 days notice, not much notice at all, right? I fortunately was given almost 2 weeks notice, and I am super grateful for that It was hard because I was stripped of all of my candidates and responsibilities and sat there for almost 2 weeks, doing almost nothing. But I'm still grateful, grateful that I didn't get um, the last minute, warning that a lot of people did, last minute notification that a lot of people did. After the layoff with Amazon, I started to feel uh, a little bit discouraged again. After a few interviews and no callbacks, I started to think, you know, it's just not worth it anymore. Um, I had been jumping through hoops for 20 years and I just didn't want to do it anymore. So um, I decided that I was going to have to reinvent myself. And I didn't know if I was going to continue building my business or if I needed to embark on a new adventure because my business brought in money, but it didn't bring in enough to support myself. And that's probably my fault for not developing a marketing strategy, not having the capital to really to advertise. Everything that I did for my own business, I've bootstrapped. I've bootstrapped the business from day one, but I've always had other income sources to fall back on. I've always, you know, contracted with this company or contracted with that company. So, but in 2023, it was pretty bleak and I had to figure out what I was going to do to reinvent myself. I was not ready to give up on my training company. It had been 5 years since I started it, but I started it at a time when the world was basically falling apart. So a lot of it wasn't my fault, right? Or I can't really beat myself up over that. The first couple of years, I don't know what I would have done. It might have been a good time for me to really just, put my head down and get to it. And I did do a lot, but a lot of people didn't have money to pay me to help them with their job searches or all the other things that I was doing because everyone was out of work. A lot of people had lost, everything, every source of income that they had, just like I had. So the first 5 years, I really can't say that I failed. Maybe I could have done some things different. Maybe I could have, done more or done better, but I really can't say that I failed the first 5 years of my business. So I decided that I was going to try again. I was going to give myself another 5 years to build this company, to build Careerspresso, to um, help people because I've always done this. And I think it's just in my nature and my heart to do it. Help people find jobs, help people advance their careers, help people negotiate salary, teach them how to, ask for a raise, or a promotion, teach them how to highlight their greatest achievements and just all the things that I know that I needed when I was struggling with work in my early career. And then again, after turning 50, struggling again because no one wants to hire anyone who's a little bit older for whatever reasons. And I know the reasons. When you're older, you're a liability. The companies see you as a liability. They also see you as someone who's going to demand more and who's going to ask more, who's going to speak up more, and who's going to cost them more because you're going to want more money. But then you also cost more money insurance wise because, especially if you have a pre existing condition, but you also cost a company more money. As far as insurances are concerned. So, a lot of times when we're older, over 50, over 40, in fact, and that's why over 40 is a protected class, we often get looked over for roles by companies because of those reasons. They can say that we're really looking for someone who's going to stick around for a while as an excuse not to hire someone in our age range, 40, 50, 60. But that's not a good excuse because most of us who are a little bit older have greater longevity than anyone who is just starting out in their career. Most people who are young are bouncing around every year or two because they're trying to advance their careers. So the longevity game is really in our favor. And companies who say that they're looking for someone to stick around for a while. They're looking for us. They just got it backwards. But anyways, it's all of these experiences, all of these jobs, everything that I've been through, all of the layoffs, all of the downsizing, all of the drama, all of the crazy work experiences that I had in corporate America that brought me to this point where I was able to build this business, where I even came up for the idea of this business. In actuality, that's how it all started. This business is is being developed as a direct result of all of the things that I encountered throughout my career, all of the struggles, all of the ups and downs, all of the ebbs and flows, all of the ins and outs, all of the good things, all of the bad things, all of that, all of my experiences, everything that I had to endure throughout my career made Careerspresso possible. So I can't give up on it. I can't give up on it. And so that's where I'm at right now. I'm relaunching it, I'm restarting it, and here we are. I decided that I was going to go ahead and build this company, Careerspresso, in 2024. And I put out a video on this channel to reintroduce myself, to relaunch the business, um, just to say, hey, I'm back, right? And then about 6 weeks ago, not even 6 weeks, probably 5 weeks, 4 or 5 weeks ago, Biden did something that really brought me back to life. And I don't mean for this to be a political video, but I have to share because this is the catalyst that made all this happen. Biden endorsed Harris for president, which shocked my system to the core. And I was so encouraged by that, so incredibly encouraged by that I'm almost in tears right now. The first thing I thought of was Obama and the restoration of the audacity of hope in this country. Biden endorsing Harris made me feel that same way, that there's hope. There's hope for this country after all. And I got fired up and I started posting on a platform that I was on but never used, and that's TikTok. And I started posting about the campaign, and I was just so excited and so just like, I am here for this because this is history in the making, right? It's, if nothing else, it's history in the making. First of all, she's the first female vice president of the United States. She's more qualified than the other candidates. And if you don't believe me, do your own research. It doesn't matter to me that she's Southeast Asian and Jamaican. What matters to me is that I didn't think I would ever see a female president in my lifetime. I didn't think it was possible. But I'm just encouraged and hopeful by the fact it's absolutely possible to have a female president in the United States. And I think America is ready for it. I think America is ready for it. And so it's game on again, right? I'm just encouraged. I'm encouraged by the hope and the joy that she brings. And I'm encouraged by the restoration of relationships that I'm seeing amongst women of all colors. We make up 51.1% of the population. I think this speaks volumes towards what this country is capable of, and volumes for the future of this country. Is she perfect? No. But what candidate is, right? Is she better than the other guy? Absolutely. 100%. Is she qualified? Absolutely. 100%. I am just so here for this. And I think that I have to give credit to Biden for endorsing her, because it gave me so much hope that I am just so proud to be a business owner in this country right now, and one that helps people advance their lives as they navigate the winds of change. And I'm so looking forward to seeing what happens in November. And I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with my business, Careerspresso, and all of the relationships that I make, helping people, advance their lives and their careers. And I'm really especially looking forward to the growth of my channel. And I hope you subscribe. And I just appreciate you all being here. I appreciate everyone who has subscribed recently. It means a lot to me. It really does mean a lot to me. And I do hope that you will continue to watch my videos and come back for more, and hit the notification bell. And there's my plug. But I'm excited, and I'm full of happiness and joy today, and have been these last few weeks. And I hope that it just continues. It continues for the next 4 years, and then we do it again, and it continues for another 4 years after that. I want us to work together to keep up the momentum that we've started. The energy is great. I'm optimistic about all of our futures, especially the women in this country, the young girls in this country. And I hope you're on board. I hope you feel the same way. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.